What is up, Rad Potential YouTube? This is the video that we've all been waiting for, right? All the suspense that the YouTube magic has built in the last two videos. No, just kidding. This is real suspense. So, I've got the 13B REW on the stand, exactly where I left it from the last video. I've got to pull it back apart. As you saw from my comprehensive, build video, I don't think, like I said, I reviewed that video. I don't think I missed anything. I don't know why it's tight. I have no idea. I haven't experienced this before. When I made that video, I was super detailed. I had a list, made sure I checked everything, made sure I showed you guys everything. And I mean, I didn't edit hardly anything out of that video. So the engine's hard to turn over. We found out in our checklist, okay? We went down the checklist of things to look over after you build your engine, right? Do you have in play? Does it feel tight? In our case, yes. Do all the seals still have springiness? In our case, yes. Do you still have in play when you put the front stack on? Yes. Like, is everything good? This engine looks good, seems good. I put fuel in it, like gasoline, to try to clean the assembly lube out, made it crank slower. So something on the inside is not happy. It's definitely a rotor seal of sorts. Now, if you remember, we go back to when we built the rotors, that those oil control rings were super hard to get fitted. So, my guess, oil control rings. My second guess, maybe there's a complication between the solid corner seals fitting a little loose and my corner seal clearance. Maybe the solid corners were moving around and one of my clearances is too tight. Could be. So that's really what we're looking for. So I'm going to set you guys up right here. I'm going to bring this thing a little closer and we're going to start taking this thing apart. We're going to figure out what's going on. Pull the front stack off. Don't forget, you need a bolt in your front stationary gear, otherwise it'll fall out when you flip your engine over. We'll just catch the washer as it comes out here. Come on. There we go. Washer. Okay. To the back of the engine. So, one thing to check, guys, if you have issues with your engine, okay, doing weird stuff, you can mistake a 13B rear stationary gear for a 12A one. If you're building a 12A, a 13B gear will bolt into this. However, the end of the gear will contact the rotor and your engine will be locked up, so don't do that. All right. There's no damage to the gear, no witness marks on it at all. One thing I do want to test though, okay? We know it cranks slow. So as we remove parts, I want to try to crank it over again. So I'm going to go ahead and flip this back up and I'm going to put the front hub bolt in here and grab my ratchet. And I want to try to turn this over with that stationary gear out. It could be as simple as that something on the rear stationary gear was binding up and causing an issue. So you kind of want to test as you go. And I can already tell you that's definitely not the issue. But we're going to try it anyway. There's a good side. Anytime you make a mistake, guys, there's always a different way to look at it that makes it good, okay? There's always a win right here. Didn't get the engine built perfect or something's wrong on the inside of the engine. So for you guys, if you ever put your engine together and you forget something, do something wrong, this is a great learning opportunity for you to know how to take it apart should that happen. I can definitely feel that same resistance, and it's like stuck now. Okay, back over. We know that this is a 17 millimeter back here, so we're gonna buzz all these out. Mega, guys. Just as easy as they go together, they come apart. So most likely, guys, when you're lifting this rear iron off, some of these rotor seals are going to come with it, okay? I'm going to be careful not to hurt the coolant seals, okay? You can reuse these. So if you tear one of them, you can't. Now, in my case, I'm going to replace them, but just know that if you are careful when removing these, you can reuse the coolant seals. All right, the rear iron is off. No crazy witness marks on the iron back there. Oh, would you look at that? I see, guys. All right. The corners, it's gonna be hard for you to see this. My camera's on a zoomy one, but see how that's worn pretty good right there on those corners? Wonder if they popped up. Let me grab a tray for the rotor parts. Apex seal bits. Which rotor is this? The rear? The rear. Okay. Okay, let's see. How does this turn? So with the rear stationary gear not in, the rotor's going to move around in here a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and try to... Ooh. Okay, it was hitting the apex seal. I'm going to go ahead and try to lift this rotor out of here. Okay? I'm going to leave the housing on for the sake of... Once I get this rotor out of here, if it turns over freely, we've seen that witness mark. We know that those popped up, the corners of the apex seals popped up, and we're definitely dragging against the housing pretty hard. I want to see how it turns with the rear rotor out, okay? We may not have to disassemble the rest of the engine. So we're going to pop this rear rotor out. We might get lucky here, guys, okay? Now, is it recommended that you take pressure off your coolant seals and this, that, and the other? Probably not. I wouldn't probably take the rear iron off if you've been running your engine for a while and just replace the rear iron and the rear iron coolant seals and put it back together. But in this case, the coolant seals are still brand new. The high tack is still not like 100%, you know, it's set up, but it's still not like heat cycled and soaked. So we might be able to get away with, right, just fixing the rear section and putting it back together. So let's try to get this thing out. It's going to be really hard. You need to remember the orientation of the rotor when you pull it so that if you lose a seal that's clearance to fit, you can make sure to put it back in the right spot, okay? So I'm just going to lift this out. The apex seals and springs are going to fall out, which is okay, all right? They're going to stay contained in the engine. They might go in the intake port. Ideally, they don't go down in the center iron, between the E-shaft and the center iron. So just be careful doing that. But this should just lift up. We should be able to take our fingers and hold the apex seals in for the most part. And get this thing out. My fingers aren't big enough to reach all three of them. Oh, maybe they are. Okay, I got all the apex seals. So let's set this over here on the rear section. Okay. The corners stayed in, everything stayed in. So now what I want to do, guys, is I'm going to turn this and see if it turns nice and easy. And that feels honestly pretty good. But here's the thing. If you're on a budget, you don't want to buy a new soft seal kit, go ahead and put it back together at this point if you think you've found your issue, right? For us, like I said just a second ago, there's no evidence of the little corners scratching the iron, okay? Looking at the housing, they'd have been on our end, the closer end. And I guess this housing wasn't super perfect to begin with. It was in really good shape. But it's not, hurt at all, right? If you think about when you drop your apex seals in, the corners sit at the top, which is the rear of the housing. So they would have sat up here. So it doesn't look like the apex seals are hurt at all. Just these little corner pieces. It's really hard for me to show it. I'll get some pictures after this. But you can see the excessive wear. If I can get this to focus on my hand. On that corner piece right there, the shininess, right? See how that's super shiny? And then look at the apex seal. Not shiny at all. Hasn't worn any of the coating off. So my guess, like I said, my gut was going to be these oil control rings. But if you look, they're actually seated nice and proper now, having been clamped in this engine. So I'm thinking it's just these corners. That's what I've got witnesses marks at. But anyways, what I was getting at a little bit ago, whenever I said, if you're on a budget, I get it, okay? You fix this part. I think that the front rotor's fine. Go ahead and put your engine back together, okay? You can clean the coolant seals up, like this one that came out. You can clean this high tack off as best you can. Clean the groove out as best you can and put it back in there. Wipe this off lightly. Maybe put some high tack on the coolant seals, and you can put the rear iron back on knowing that you found the issue, okay? Gosh dang it, about trip. However, because, I'm putting my name on building this engine for my buddy, right? Told him I'd do it. Want to do it right. We don't halfway do anything here at the Rad Ranch, especially when it comes to building engines. So, I am going to tear this engine the whole way down, the rest of the way, okay? And I'm going to replace all the coolant seals in this engine and the O-rings, and I'm going to put it back together. And that's going to be on me, which is fine. Life, you got to make a mistake, got to fix it. So that's what we're doing. And I love the support you guys have for, me showing this stuff. Some people wouldn't show you this. They would be like, I build it perfect, this, that, and the other every single time, and whatever. Well, I'm here because we're the backyard people, right? I want to show you guys how you could do it by yourself in a little shop, help you guys learn. So that's what we're doing. So I'm going to go ahead and tear down the rest of this, make sure everything's perfect on the front, and rebuild the rest of this engine this weekend. And I may show it once I get it back together. Okay, I'm probably not going to show you guys a comprehensive rebuild thing. I think the lesson to be learned here is to just make sure, right, that those little corners are 100% pushed down. I pushed them all down, put grease on them, and put the rear iron on. But, whenever it shook or when I pushed down on the iron, maybe they popped apart. Or maybe this is the ultimate culprit here, now that I'm thinking about it. I know when I push those corners in, that rotor, right, because the oil control rings weren't compressed all the way, that rotor was sitting a little bit high, okay, in the housing. What's that going to allow to happen? Whenever I start to put the rear iron on, and that rotor's sitting high, the oil control rings are sitting high, what's the first thing that iron's going to contact when it gets pushed down on the engine? The oil control rings. Okay, now you saw me push down on it, right? It's going to spring the oil control rings down. That probably hit that grease that I had on those corners and pulled those corner seals up. Not the actual corner seal, but the corner of the apex, the two-piece apex. And pulled that up. And what that did, Then when I torqued it down, it cramped them in there at an angle, and it jacked up the corner of the apex seal. So my guess is that's what happened, which is not ideal. But, you know, we learn from it. So I'll pin a comment in there on that video to just make sure that you get that right at the very end of it. I'm not going to take it down. Like I said, I reviewed it. I couldn't find anything in that video that we did wrong, but that's why I love filming this stuff, is accountability for me and for you guys to be there for me. So I want to thank you guys. I guess I'll tear the rest of this down and let you know if I find anything going crazy with it. My dog is going to murder the neighbors or something. She's barking at something. But I will, yeah. I'm going to tear the rest of this down, and I'll let you know what's going on with it. I think that was it, but like I said, I want to be sure that it's perfect. I want to be sure that it's right. And like I said, you learn by making mistakes, guys. So it is what it is. It happened. We'll get it fixed. Heck yeah. This right here, guys, is why we took the rest of this apart. Ooh, that corner still needs to stay in there. If you look at these corners too, and I bet the same thing happened. They got marks on them. Good little witness marks. And I can feel these were cut, right? From the factory, dead smooth. I can feel a little burr on them where they've been dragging something. So fortunately, the seal itself is generally softer than the coating that's on here. But I don't feel any abnormal wear on that. So pull this front rotor out of here. All right, folks. So the issue. I'm still blaming, ready for the series of events like I just explained it a second ago, right? Okay, so here's what happened. The oil control rings weren't fitting down all the way into the rotors. Because of that, there's extra space in the engine as I was torquing the engine together, right? Smashing your sandwich. When I was smashing the sandwich down, those little corner pieces popped up. They didn't sit in there straight, so they got pushed down at an angle. And what that causes the tip of that to wear funny on the side of the iron and the housing. Now, you got the housings apart. You can see there's not really damage to it, but you can see a little bit of some marks in the, like the housings typically wear right at the edges. So you can see that some of those edges are a little bit cleaned up from where they were, you know, running in the old engine. But definitely not, you know, hurt beyond repair. You can check your, you know, and they were like that before the housing had some edge wear. This engine has already been rebuilt once, so this is the second time we're rebuilding this engine. Not just me, but the second time. The irons and housings have 150,000 miles on them. So, anyways, I don't feel anything out of the ordinary on the edges of these housings. But anyways, like I was saying, the oil control rings not being seated all the way created extra space. And with that extra space allowed those corners to pop out, which allowed them to get pinched, which allowed this engine to not turn over freely. And I am 100% glad that I did not just send it on its merry way with the epic amounts of compression it was making and say, it'll loosen up, or it'll tighten up. So be proud of your work, guys. Make sure you do it right and take the time to, you know, especially if you're giving somebody a service. You know, for me, I don't offer rebuilding engines as a service, but I do help my friends out. And I didn't want to give him something I wasn't 100% confident in. So with that, guys, I want to thank you guys very much for watching. This will give this series some closure. I will get this engine cleaned up and put back together and show you guys the finished product when it's done. No sense in filming a 50-minute engine assembly video, even though I'll probably film it when I put it together so that I can review it to make sure I put it together right, if it does give me a fit, and I can make sure everything's right. But get stoked, guys. We got a lot of crazy stuff coming. I'm working currently on the final review for the Bring a Trailer ad for the rally car. So that's literally going to happen in the next week or so, is the Bring a Trailer ad's going to go live. So if I don't have an upload before then, go check out that ad. You will see the videos I've been working on about the rally car and its finished product and why I built it and this, that, and the other. Those will be coming out next. So definitely go check those videos out as well. If you haven't subscribed to the channel and you love learning new things about these rotary engines, learning new things about cars in general, definitely check out the rest of the videos on the channel. I would be very appreciative of that. And with that, I'm going to get cleaning. So thank you guys very much for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Keep it rad. Hey, bark box. Come here. She's coming across the porch right now. Boom, there she is. Come here. Come on, bark box, what are you barking at? It's raining, you're probably muddy and wet. Ready to clean this engine? You're just ignoring me because you're too cool for school these days. You don't like to be on camera. Hey, come here. Come here. Come here. You gotta say bye. She's in her adolescence. She's a teenager. Disobedient stages. Gotta love it. Hey, come here. You gotta say bye. Peace, guys.